good for you. I have watched it, and it was sobering. Difficult to watch. It is the first Sunday in Advent, a season hallowed by tradition and memory here at Fountain Street Church, and pointed toward four great hopes and dreams: faith, hope, love, and joy. It is said that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. A flame we can see, but its substance we cannot know. And so faith, like a flame, can be seen but cannot be held. It can only be followed. Like the candle in the dark, faith is the thing that lights our way, though it is something we cannot ourselves possess. It leads us, not we it. And it lights our way not by becoming what we wish it to be, but by revealing what is and is often hard to see. On this Sunday of faith, we lift our hearts toward the light that we cannot hold, but must believe. And now, Hadley Newhouse will light the candle of faith.
Good morning. I invite you to join with me in the responsive invocation. In the dwindling daylight, we light a candle of faith that light will return. In the encroaching cold, we light a candle of hope that warmth endures. In times of fear, we light a candle of love that casts out fear. In times of doubt, we light a candle of joy that dispels all doubt.
A busy day and a busy season, and it has so many things in it that we love. The banners, especially our first one there. We have the choir with its white stoles and its little ribbons, and they'll sing a couple of really wonderful pieces of music with some help from a couple of young singers. We've had our musicians from our trio, and the one who's married to one of the trio will be playing the piano. It's a family affair what we have here, and that's great. One of the things I like to do is share some readings, poems at this time of year that I do every year, and this is especially useful for people who may not be grown up yet. How many people in this room feel grown up? Okay. I am especially fond of a poem by Ogden Nash, so fond that it lives in my head, not in a book. You can find it yourself. But I've read this, recited it, given it to you for years, and everybody seems to like it. It's called The Boy Who Laughed at Santa Claus. It's about my hometown, so I'm especially happy. In Baltimore, there lived a boy who wasn't anybody's joy, and though his name was Jabez Dawes, his character was full of flaws. In school, he never led his classes. He hid old ladies' reading glasses. His mouth was open while he chewed, and elbows to the table glued. He stole the milk of hungry kittens and walked through doors marked no admittance. He said he acted thus because there wasn't any Santa Claus. Another trick that tickled Jabez was crying boo at little babies. He brushed his teeth, they said in town, sideways instead of up and down. Yet people pardoned every sin and viewed his antics with a grin, till they were told by Jabez Dawes there isn't any Santa Claus. Deploring how he did behave, his parents quickly sought their grave. They hurried through the portals pearly. Jabez left the funeral early. Like whooping cough from child to child, he sped to spread the rumor wild. Sure as my name is Jabez Dawes, there isn't any Santa Claus. Slunk like a weasel or a martin through nursery and kindergarten, whispering low to every tot, there isn't any, no there's not. No beard, no pipe, no scarlet clothes, no twinkling eye, no cherry nose, no sleigh, and furthermore, by Jiminy, nobody coming down the chimney. The children wept all Christmas Eve while Jabez chortled up his sleeve. No infant dared hang up his stocking for fear of Jabez' rivals mocking. He sprawled on his untidy bed, fresh malice dancing in his head, when presently, with scalp a-tingling, Jabez heard a distant jingling. He heard the sound of sleigh and hoof crisply alighting on the roof. What used to rise and bar the door? A shower of soot was on the floor. Jabez beheld, oh, awe of awe's, a fireplace full of Santa Claus. Then Jabez fell upon his knees with cries of don't, and pretty please, he said, I don't know where you read it. I swear some other fellow said it. Jabez, replied the angry saint, it isn't I, it's you that ain't. Although there is a Santa Claus, there isn't any Jabez Dawes. Said Jabez then with impudent vim, oh yes, there is, and I am him. Your language don't scare me, it doesn't. And suddenly he found him. He wasn't. From curling toes to unkempt locks, Jabez became a jack-in-the-box, an ugly toy in Santa's sack, mounting the flue on Santa's back. The neighbors heard his mournful squeal. They searched for him, but not with zeal. No trace was found of Jabez Dawes, which led to thunderous applause, and people drank a loving cup and went and hung their stockings up. All you who laugh at Santa Claus, beware the fate of Jabez Dawes. The saucy boy who told the saint off, the child who got him, licked his paint off. Happy Advent. Choir, come and sing. And character school, I'll see you presently. Hail the day on which a child is born. That's what they say among the Maasai people. Rejoice, let us sing and praise she who gave birth to a child for whom she longed. Our hearts are glad. Carl Sandburg said, a baby is God's opinion that the world should go on. So it is always with joy, especially at a season like this, that we dedicate children, for it gives us hope. It should also remind us that our task is to make the world a better place for those to whom we are bequeathing it. I'm asking now that the family of, let me get the name just right, Harris Prescott Mackey, present themselves right here so we can enjoy welcoming you and your family into our community. Come on up here. I know it's a bit of a walk. I'll hand that back to you. Come on up here. Why don't you go right over there? Have a stand up. Good to see you all. Fabulous. Come on up. Oh, we have godparents too. Excellent. Come on by. Good to see you. Good to see you all.
The rituals surrounding birth are as old as humanity. No matter how wise we grow, we never understand or will be indifferent to this miracle, which is as it should be. The Holy One has deftly arranged that we adults should feel most humble before babies. The familiar passage from Khalil Gibran also says, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. Yet it is into your lives, into your care, into your arms that babes come." So what you do is not only for you, it is for them, and for a few short years, but it is for all of us and the future that lies beyond your lives.
Now, you all are here because you know how daunting this task is. It will take the best of you and then some. And you are here to find the support, guidance, and companionship necessary for this awesome task. We are honored that you chose this church to share your life with as part of your family. As you entered into parenthood, knowing its importance, we ask you now to affirm before this spiritual assembly that you will do your best to rear them in the ways of faith, hope, love, and joy. Will you nurture and care for them, provide for them, and protect them, guide and empower them so that they will do justly, love kindness, and walk humbly with their God? If you so agree, please say we will. All right.
We are pleased to note that older brother Lawson was also dedicated here in this sanctuary just a couple years ago. To the godparents, You were selected because your distinct gifts can enrich these children and their parents. Be tenacious in your affection. Prove the world's goodness by believing in it, and be truthful and honest so they will be. Will you promise these things with all generosity of spirit? Say we do. And now to the extended families, to friends, and to this religious community, I ask, will you support this family in their endeavors? Will you welcome them into your lives and into the life of this congregation? Will you be a living example by your faith, hope, love, and joy? Will you welcome them as fellow pilgrims on the path of faith, learning to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with each other and with God? If you can so affirm, say, we will.
Well, I'm going to come a little closer now. Hi, how are you today? That's a great suit you got on, young man. So I think it's important, I'm going to borrow the microphone for just a moment. Let's say this young person's name really loud and strong. How about mom and dad say it all together, okay? So everybody can hear his name.
Harris
Prescott
Mackey.
Yep.
Harris Prescott. That's a name to grow into, youngster. That's a fabulous name. I'll hand that back to you. I'm going to say, turn my page here. I'm going to stand next to you. I'm going to hold your hand a little bit. How you doing, hot stuff? And I enfold you in my hands, but also in the arms of everyone who is here, in the care of all those in this room. I touch you with this water, which is like the sea from which life comes, and the blood which runs through your veins and mine too. May you come to know that you're part of the river of life and rejoice in its wonder and joy. Remember, it is also like the sweat on the brow of the children of Israel, and also like the tears that Mary shed for her son. Sometimes the water is a sign of effort and loss, but it still binds us all together. By this water, you and I are bound together, and with these people all around us, may you grow in power and grace to fill the world with your spirit. I consecrate you to the service of righteousness, truth, and love. You okay with that? Good for you. Let his name be numbered among the living and his name be heard among the congregation. Beloved, I give you Harris, right? Prescott Mackey. Please greet this family with all affection. And I'll give you the certificate later. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. Why don't you have a seat? Psalm 121. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from God, maker of heaven and earth, who will not let your foot give way, your guardian who will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian, your protection on your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm, guard your life, guard your going and coming now and forever. Every psalm in the book of Psalms is a prayer in some way, most often one of help. It is one of those four species of prayer that three of which Anne Lamott described as help, thanks, and wow, in which I add also oops. This one is a thanks. But it's a thanks for not making life harder. We seldom think of being grateful for things not being worse than they are. And yet we are frequently delivered of the small miseries that others enjoy, whether it be the struggles of homeless youth or homeless adults, whether it be struggles of enduring a patriarchal world as a woman, whether it be the struggles of being a person of color in a white society, whether it be being non-Christian in a very Christian society. We seldom think of these things as struggles if we are not members of those communities. But sometimes it is the small gratitudes that we appreciate the most, of not having been harmed today. I invite you to step into a time of prayer, a prayer of gratitude for the small miracles. I awoke this morning to my utmost surprise, for there shall come a day when that will not happen. To be alive is a gift we never earn and do not merit. And yet, with every breath, we realize even the air is a gift. We live inside of a sea of gratitudes. And surely, as those who have not enough to eat or a place to sleep, who cannot turn without fearing someone might be eager for their harm, they too breathe. They too speak and hear. As those famous words said so many years, and from this very pulpit said, let us be grateful for the capacity to see, feel, hear, and understand. Let us be grateful for the incredible gift of life. Yes, all of those. What wealth we have would mean nothing without those. On this Sunday of faith, this Sunday of looking for the substance of things unseen, we hold out the spiritual hand and count the blessings that come with every moment. And remember the wonderful words of the great mystic Meister Eckhart, who taught that even if all you ever say is thank you, that is prayer enough. We say thanks for all these things and all those things which we cannot say aloud, but which fill our hearts. We pause now in that inmost and truest prayer which is found in the presence of silence. My German is not good. I think that's not, we like to think it's oh Christmas tree, but I believe a Tannenbaum is just a pine tree in German. You're a German speaking person, right, Ms. Marilyn? Am I correct in that estimate? Because it would be otherwise Weihnachtsbaum or something like that. Now, my problem with that song is that it's also the tune for my home state's state song, Maryland, My Maryland, which is about the most revolting state song there is in the Union. It's full of blood and gore and guts, and it's a very clearly, it was written during the Civil War from a Southern Confederate perspective, so I'm not proud of that. So I'll sing "Oh Christmas Tree" happily. I preface every sermon here with gratitude for those whose lives came to their conclusion among us in times in these years past, whose deaths were marked not so much by loss but also by gratitude as well, for those who made this church the church we love, the one we have, as a gift of their work and of their loyalty. I lift up the name of Virginia Hewitt, who died just this past week at age 102, of Paul Fuller, who died this week north of 90, of Bill Koistra, who passed away in years past, and Kathleen Bucknam, of Carl Green, of Gerald Anderson, Ron Bilesma, Neva Brew, Shirley Wilmarth, Bonnie Price, Lillian Honecker, and John Bissell, and doubtless others known to those here, but maybe perhaps unknown to the rest of us. And I utter these ancient words found in the Jewish prayer book, El Malei Rachamim Shokein Bimromam, God filled with mercy, dwelling in the heavens heights, bring proper rest beneath the wings of your Shekhinah, your presence, to the souls of our beloved and our blameless who went to their eternal place of rest. May you, who are a source of mercy, shelter them beneath your wings eternally, bind their souls to you and to we the living, that they may rest in peace, that we may be at peace, and let us say, Va'imaru, Amen. So you've already heard the psalm for today, 121. I'll get to that in a moment. But I do have a few other salty words to offer. So if you don't remember my sermon, you can remember the readings and think you got the right stuff today. Words from, for example, George Carlin. None of the 7 words will turn up, fear not. Tell people there's an invisible man in the sky who created the universe, and the vast majority will believe you, but tell them paint is wet and they have to touch it to be sure. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, a casual stroll through a lunatic asylum shows that faith does not prove anything. A little more sour he is. And Margaret Atwood, with a curious phrase out of The Handmaid's Tale, by telling you anything at all, I'm at least believing in you. I believe you're there. I believe you into being because I'm telling you this story. I will you into existence. I tell, therefore you are. Well, it's Advent, which is why so many of you are here when you're not here on other Sundays. I do take attendance, by the way, in my heart. But it also means garlands, evergreen, carols, candles, jingle bells, chestnuts roasting, not so much on open fires anymore. Isn't that what Advent is about? No. What Advent about is something else entirely, and I've queued up a song for your pleasure.
Something due any day, I will know right away, soon as it shows. It'd make them cannonballing down through the sky, gleaming its eye, bright as a rose. Who knows? It's only just out of reach, down the block on a beach, under a tree. I got a feeling there's a miracle due, gonna come true, coming to me. Could it be? Yes, it could. Something's coming, something good, if I can wait. Something's coming, I don't know what it is, but it is gonna be great. With a click, with a shock, phone'll jingle, door'll knock, open the latch. Something's coming, don't know when, but it's soon. Catch the moon, one-handed catch. Around the corner, or whistling down the river. Come on, deliver to me.
I wish I could go on, but you know the song. It's out of West Side Story. And Tony, sensing something is coming, something's coming, only just out of reach. That's what Advent is about. Something coming, but out of reach, out of sight. You don't know what it is, but you sense a presence that is about to happen. Now, I could have played any number of songs. I'm rather fond of the Wells Fargo wagon as they're coming down the street. Or I could have gone in a more contemporary way, meaning style. Bob Dylan wrote When the Ship Comes In, and that's not always a happy outcome. Or Carly Simon's Anticipation. I looked for songs that are more current, but apparently waiting for something is what modern generations don't want to do. They want it now. I'm old enough to remember having to wait, whether it was the Wells Fargo wagon or just Christmas morning. Here at Fountain Street Church, we lift up 4 themes for Advent: faith, hope, love, and joy. And they seem to be self-evident truths, but perhaps they deserve a little more deliberation from time to time, especially the word faith. Like Advent, it has been so co-opted as a religious word that we now use it as a synonym for belief in something cosmic, theological, God or Bibles or Jesus. In this form, faith has been specialized into something that someone might call a shibboleth. I love the word shibboleth. It's actually out of the scriptures themselves. In one of the books of the Jewish scriptures, some soldiers are keeping watch over a border, and they want to keep the people from the outside from sneaking in. So when someone comes up claiming to be coming back, they say, well, say the word shibboleth. But the people in the other community who don't belong don't know how to make the sh sound. So they say sibboleth, and they say, aha, caught you. You're not one of us. A shibboleth is a word or a concept or an idea that says, I am in this group or I'm not in this group. If I were to say, washed in the blood of the Lamb, that would be perfectly intelligible to all evangelical Christians. It is senseless to a Hindu or a Buddhist. It makes no sense. No one ever gets clean washing themselves in blood. It has symbolic meanings that are only intelligible to one community and unintelligible to another. In the same sense, faith, the word, now means one's religion. We speak of the Christian faith or the Jewish faith, as if faith were the stuff one believed in. But that's the error. Faith, in its original sense, means or applies to the believer, not what is believed. One has faith in. There is no faith outside of the believer. It is what a person has. It is the disposition of a person. You may have seen a bumper sticker, a rather cheeky one, that said, God said it, I believe it, that settles it. That describes not the scripture, but the person who believes in it. In my journey through the Psalms, I am departing from the numbered sequence to see how faith and hope and love and joy turn up in these ancient poems. There are virtually no psalms about believing in God as a concept. None. God's existence is assumed, presumed, and is non-questionable. It's like believing in air or believing in gravity. But there are lots of psalms about faith in this trusting sense, affirming sense, loyal to something sense. And none are better than Psalm 121, which asks a question to which we already know the answer. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? Parenthetically, not the mountains. My help comes from God, maker of heaven and earth, maker of the mountains. These verses are famous because, if you remember from last spring, the choir and others sang Mendelssohn's Elijah, and a piece from that for high voices. One of my favorites is, lift thine eyes, oh lift thine eyes to the mountains, whence cometh. It's a beautiful piece, and many of us would recognize the verse through those musical moments. But it also turns up, as do other psalms like the 23rd Psalm and others, at memorials and funerals, when we're feeling insecure, when we don't know what's dependable anymore, and we look for an emotional sense of something we can still rely upon. In fact, one of the greatest sentences in the book of Psalms, especially for those grieving, is in number 139, when it talks about as if someone were in the darkness and says, even if I cover myself with darkness, you are with me, for the darkness is not dark to thee. Believing in it or not, there is comfort in that sense. There is something larger than your own struggle, that there's something of some meaning to what's going on, even if you don't know what it is. And that's what Psalms say over and over, often in times of fear and danger. I don't know what's happening, I don't understand it, but I'm going to believe that something is going on that makes some sense of this moment and of this life I am in. Thinking back to the child dedication just a little while ago, hey there, Harrison. I remember that quote from Carl Sandburg, a baby is God's opinion that the world should go on. I'm not sure if it's true, but when you hold a baby, you're willing to bet on the future a little more than you were yesterday, aren't you? Here's another I found in C.S. Lewis. Supposing one believed and was wrong after all. But how could that be? How could an idiotic universe have produced creatures whose mere dreams are so much stronger, better, and subtler than itself? Or as I like to put it, I tell people I'm not sure God exists, but I'm very much open to the possibility that something smarter than me is out there, because I think the universe has to be at least a little smarter than I am. But of course there is the risk in faith, the one that Lewis noted. What if it turns out you're wrong? What if you put your faith in something that lets you down? Have you been reading the story about Mad Mike Hughes? Oh, Mad Mike Hughes lives in California out in the desert. He's built a rocket in his backyard to propel himself up 1,800 feet so that he can take a picture out the window and prove that the earth is flat. He's a new believer in the flat earth theory, which, by the way, is growing. Flat earth believers are one of the fastest growing religions in the country, in percentages, if nothing else. Why do they believe that? Well, it's rooted in a belief in the conspiracy of government and science to fool us all. Given how much money the government spends, and given the way we write our tax code, that is not a wholly irrational anxiety. But it's applied in all the wrong directions right here. So far, he has not made his flight, which he thinks will be high enough to take those pictures. Now, why it never dawned on him to get in an airplane and go above 1,800 feet, or to drive up to the top of Granite Peak, which is 20 miles away, which is 8,000 feet above sea level, I don't know. But there are people who are determined to believe something, even though we know in our heart of hearts it will let them down. And one of the things we all fear is putting our faith in something that ultimately makes us look foolish. We don't want to be duped. We want to be sure. We want something dependable to put our trust in, which occasions the greater risk than being made a fool, which is to be the cynic, to believe in nothing, that say that there is nothing out there worth putting your trust in, being loyal to, other than yourself, perhaps. And how is this more dangerous than believing in something manifestly foolish? Because when you stop believing anything other than what you know to be true, you actually stop living. Most of the choices we face are uncertain to some extent. Maybe it's tiny, but every now and then you have to make a real choice. For example, who of us who are married knew that the spouse we chose would be the right one before we got married, even a year later? And sometimes it isn't the right person. Did you make the wrong choice? I don't know. But you didn't know beforehand. Who knew that the career choice you made 20 years ago or 20 minutes ago is the right choice? No one knew at the time. Yet you did decide, because you had to decide. You had to make a choice. Those with no faith except in what they know actually make no decisions. They simply become part of the settled rather than the unsettled. There's a silly joke that embodies this. Morty wanted to win the lottery, so every night and every morning he would pray, "Oh God, if only I could win the lottery," morning and night, sometimes in the middle of the day, begging God, "Please, if only I could win the lottery." And week after week, day after day, he's praying the same prayer. Then one night, having said it with special urgency, light fell upon his head from above, and a disembodied voice said, "Morty, help me out. Buy a ticket." Faith, in its most elemental sense, is buying a ticket. It is making a commitment to something you don't know could be true, but want to be true and hope to be true, but you cannot make it happen. You have to make a wager. You have to put your money down somewhere. The day before my father married my mother, he told me his hands broke out in a terrible rash. His parents had told him that my mother was a poor match for him. He had to choose the support of his parents, the love of his life. Well, you know the choice. But at that moment, he did not know what the cost would be of making that choice. And his body reacted to the uncertainty, the risk. Whatever he chose would cause some measure of heartbreak. It was a crisis of faith, meaning to whom was he going to be most loyal? And he chose my mother. I'm very grateful. Mark Twain gives us a classic example toward the end of Huck Finn. I'll read a portion of it. It was on the raft, and Huck Finn is being tortured about helping Jim to escape slavery. Now, Huck, I should point out, is no liberal abolitionist. He's fine with slavery as an institution. He felt bad about stealing him, in fact, from Miss Watson, and knew that if he did not make good on it, he was surely going to go to hell. So he wrote a letter to Miss Watson revealing Jim's location to cleanse his conscience. And he felt much better for a moment, but then felt troubled by what he was doing and what it would do to Jim. Huck was having to choose between doing the right thing, revealing the location of a slave, or doing the wrong thing and protecting the man who had protected him. I happened to look around, he said, and see that paper, says Huck. I took it up and held it in my hand. I was trembling because I got to decide forever betwixt two things, and I knowed it. I studied a minute, sort of holding my breath, and then I says to myself, all right then, I'll go to hell, and tore it up. In 19th century America, a decision to be damned was a consequential decision, a crisis of faith, choosing loyalty to a friend over the uncertainty of salvation. Acts of faith. Choices you know you have to make, but you don't know if it's the right one. Those are acts of faith. In my new life as a political candidate, I think a lot about why I'm doing this, and it actually does come down to an act of faith. I had a rash of a different kind, though. I had a mind that was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and it dawned on me that the only way to end the miasma of uncertainty and cynicism and doubt was to make a choice, to believe in or not to believe in the future of our nation. Deciding to enter politics at this moment is a spiritual choice, an act of faith in a system that I have come to doubt. Because if you cannot take part in it, you cannot change it. Faith is a commitment to something you hope will be true but cannot prove will be true. So why make the choice if you can't be sure? Well, like Dad or Huck Finn, it was a forced choice. It was not one I could avoid. William James calls these living, momentous, and forced decisions that are pertinent, that will have consequences and cannot be avoided. Real choices mean choosing. You have to choose. He further realized, William James did, that the act of choosing has the effect of making your choice more likely to happen. If you don't choose to marry that person, there's a 0% chance that person will be married to you. In my case, the act of choosing hope makes hope at least marginally more possible. Faith in something acted upon improves the odds of it happening. Then a whole other insight came to me recently. America itself is a faith-based enterprise, not religious meaning. No, I mean in that more elemental sense. That phrase, a self-evident truth that all men are created equal, that's not self-evident, not even remotely close. No one believed that then, but they wanted to believe it. And they weren't very good at it, I have to point out. But they said it. And they said it with a kind of commitment that produced a war and a nation. And if we are not truly a nation where all men and women are created equal, I think we're a little closer than we were 250 years ago. They had to decide to say it and mean it for any of it to happen. Likewise, the notion of a government owned by its people and not by a king or a Kaiser or an emperor. Those were ideas, there were hopes, there were thoughts, there weren't facts, but in claiming them, then they were committed to making them happen. The irony is that the things we most believe in require us to act on them if they have any chance of happening. Faith and belief are prior to some facts. And in human life, they are prior to almost everything. We have to live for something. And in doing that, acting as if something matters, we change the odds. No guarantees, of course, but if we have no faith in something, nothing will happen. The odds may not be 100%, but they go to 0 if we are not willing to commit to anything at all. One of the parts of the story of this church involves the illustrious Duncan Littlefair, who came here knowing he was going to go for broke. This church had maybe 100 people on Sunday. It was teetering on the edge of collapse. And it invited him, and as he came here, he realized, I'm going to preach the sermons I want to preach, and if they don't work, oh well, I'll move on. He put everything on the line. The church put everything on the line too. Together they put everything on the line. And that commitment to be different is what made the difference happening. It couldn't be done with plans, with meetings, with consultants. Couldn't be done with focus groups. Couldn't be done with polling. It had to be done with a choice. You know, he told in his story that the worst day of his life was the day he moved to Grand Rapids. Everything got better from there. And every true choice should give you an awful feeling in the pit of your stomach. Because if you know for sure it's going to happen, chances are it's not a real choice. The very best choices you can make are the ones that feel the worst, because you know the most is at stake. But he tried. And the church tried. That's all any of us can do. That's all our lives really are, trying to create a future. In our lives, our families, our church, and yes, in our country. A lot more of us have to try. But who reading the facts around us? Who taking in the news that happens every day? Who would take the risks necessary to change everything? Well, only a fool would take such risks as to become a politician in this age. But fortunately, being foolish is one of my gifts. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be found true in thy sight, thou who art my doc and my redeemer, because I'm going to need all the help I can get, friends. I'm going to need all the help I can get.